Hi friends and welcome to my channel. I'm Zelda Moons, nice to meet y'all. This is going to be my first YouTube video ever. I gathered many scary stories from Reddit and I hope you enjoyed them as much as we did. The game we're going to be playing today is Helltaker. Since Helltaker gave me the opportunity to even make this happen, I thought maybe I should give back by playing their game. Anyways, I'll stop rambling and I hope you enjoy the show. Bye! When I was about 13, my mom and dad invited our previous neighbors from the block of flats we lived in until I was 5 years old. Anyways, I'd been sent to bed but could still hear everyone talking about this and that until the woman neighbor said, "Hey, Dixie's mom, do you remember when Dixie used to complain that there was someone in his room? Well, there's a family that's just moved into the floor above who has a 3-year-old son. He's complaining of the exact same thing Dixie did." This creeped me out. I had no recollection of any of this, so the next day I asked my mom. Her first reaction was, "You don't remember?" Then she told me all about the weird stuff that used to happen. Footsteps up and down the hall, shit going missing and stuff. She said the final thing to happen was when she was listening to a record one day and it started to slow down, like someone was holding a finger gently on the platter till it finally came to a stop. My mom said she snapped at this point and started shouting, "Will you leave us the fuck alone?" As soon as she said this, the recorder went straight back to playing normally, and we never experienced anything again. I never experienced anything like this since, and these days I'm quite skeptical of such stories, but I believe my mom. Strangest thing is how I found out about it from someone else 10 years later experiencing something similar. When I was really little, my parents would let me stay up late on the weekends and watch TV until I fell asleep. I really loved these times and I would stay up later than anyone else just because I could. Well, one night I was almost asleep on the couch when I heard a noise on our front porch. It was the sound of our old-fashioned porch swing moving back and forth. I was a little scared, so I crept towards the bay windows of my living room and peeked out towards the porch. Sitting on my front porch swing was an older woman, probably in her 50s, wearing nothing but a nightgown, covered in blood, and holding a huge kitchen knife. I flipped out immediately and ran screaming into my parents' room, but was too terrified to form words. My parents thought that I was upset, but when I finally was able to tell them what I saw, my dad got really angry and told me that it was just a dream and to go back to bed. I refused and kept crying and screaming until he had enough and snatched my arm and dragged me towards the front door to prove that nothing was there. I kicked and screamed all the way trying to make him stop, but he kept pulling me. Finally, we got to the door, he unlocked it and swung it open and said,
"See, there's nothing."
To this day, I have never seen the look of fear and shock that was on his face when that woman turned and stared at both of us and slowly stood up with the knife. My dad slammed the door shut and got my mom to call the police while he went and got his gun. He went back to the door with the 12 gauge and cracked the door enough to stick the barrel out. He asked her what she was doing and she said,
"Somebody killed my husband, but it wasn't me."
My dad told her that the police were coming and she freaked out, grabbed the knife and walked away. The police found her 15 minutes later trying to break into one of our neighbors' houses. I never slept in the living room again. Edit. Oh yeah, I forgot that after she left, my dad called and warned my crazy uncle who lived next door what was happening. Apparently, he was waiting on his front porch with his shotgun when she walked by. He pointed at her and just said,
"Keep moving, bitch."
Update. I just talked to my mom and she said that they never really found out about the whole story, but apparently she was crazy and off her medication. Her and her husband got into a fight and she tried to attack him with the knife but didn't seriously hurt him. When he got her out the house, she cut herself with the knife, either trying to commit suicide or make it look like her husband did it. The police never talked to us about it, so that's just what they heard from the woman's neighbors. I was 14 years old, and believe it or not, I still went trick-or-treating. I was going out with a few friends and my little cousin who was 3 years younger than I was. We left the house around 8:30 and started going to the houses with their lights on or had people in front of them. We went pretty far down the block. We were not even in our neighborhood anymore, and my friends were not as excited as my little cousin was about trick-or-treating. We just wanted the candy. Why, I do not even know what was going on in my little cousin's brain. Anyways, my little cousin was going way faster than us and was about 1, 2, maybe 3 houses ahead of me and my friends. As his older cousin, I should have made him slow down or keep a better eye on him. I was walking down a house driveway after getting some candy from it when I turned my head and saw my little cousin going up to a house that did not have their porch lights on. So I told my friends that we should skip the next houses and go over to my little cousin so I can tell them that the house had no candy because its lights were off. The minute I stepped foot into the house's driveway, I could see my little cousin walking into the house, and I could see the face of an old man through the door. I ran up the driveway and put my foot through the crack in the door so he could not close it. When the old man saw this, he immediately pushed my little cousin out the door, slamming the door and locked it. My friends were confused. I told them that me and my little cousin were going home. The police told me that no one lived there in that house for 9 years. I lived in the same house for over 12 years before I moved out. It was an innocent vintage house that laid on top of a hill. We had a maid that usually cleaned our house once a month. She was nice and we were close with her. We were quite surprised when she said she was quitting. We kept asking her why, but she wouldn't tell us, saying that she wasn't comfortable with telling us. We were beyond confused. After lots of begging, she finally told us what made her want to quit. She said that while she was cleaning the house, she saw a girl in a white dress with long black hair that covered her face. We all had dirty blonde hair, and we weren't home at the time she was cleaning the house. We were all super freaked out. That night, when I was in bed, it suddenly got really cold. I hugged the nearest pillow next to me and prayed that it would keep me warm. That morning, I woke up and found long black locks of hair in my bed. The pillow I was hugging was on the opposite side of the room. My siblings pranked me a lot, so I automatically assumed they were messing with me. So I ran downstairs into their room and told them it wasn't funny. They denied it, but I didn't believe them. That was until they told me they weren't home last night and just got back this morning. They were both at a sleepover with their friends. I knew my parents wouldn't do this, so I immediately was freaked out. Since that moment, everyone refused to sleep over, claiming that they would see a girl of the exact description of our maid staring at them. I would keep waking up with strands of hair in my bed. It got so bad to the point where I started sleeping in my parents' room. We moved out now, but I soon found out that way back a serial killer lived in our house that buried his victims under his house, and that he preferred little girls. This still freaks me out to this day. Growing up, I saw things. My mom pushed it off as it was just imaginary friends, just like all parents do. But after a while, she started realizing it wasn't that. I had turned 9 and I had an agonizing fear of things following me and seeing things everywhere. My mother started taking me to church, but sadly that didn't help. After a while, I stopped talking to her about it. I just didn't want to bother her. I grew in agony as these things keep bugging me. Fast forward 4 years later when one day a new one appeared. A lady with long black hair, dressed in white, skinny as all get out. I never saw her real face since it was always covered by her hair, but she seemed like one of the nicer hallucinations I had. The lady just sort of followed me in the waking and dream world. In my dreams, I forget what we do, but I knew she was there. After a while, I started calling her Amnesia. That's just how I refer to her. I never really thought anything about it until one day in May in 2016. I was 15 then. I had come back home from a band concert and everyone in my family was outside along with the other people who were staying with us. Smoke was coming out of the house and all the lights were off. I ran out of the car and asked what was happening. They explained that our 2 dogs were barking at something in the hallway. Heaven, a girl staying with us at the time, had went to go and see what was happening. In our hallway stood an 8-foot tall, shadowy man figure. She had screamed and got everyone. Her stepdad started smudging and blessing the house. While I was outside, I started talking to one of Heaven's sisters about the figure. I explained that I had a hallucination that fit the description. I call him Dream Taker. After I had said that, Heaven's sister had me tell my mom everything about my dreams, my hallucinations, everything. When I told her about amnesia, all the color in her face went cold. She told me that After I was born, she had taken me home to our apartment. One day she had put me in my crib and then went to go lay down for a bit. Just to be clear, my mother's bedroom was just across the way from mine, and she could see my crib from her bed. She had fallen asleep for a while when she was suddenly awoken to what sounded like someone walking in the hallway towards her room. She slumped over while walking as her white tattered dress dragged behind her. She started walking into my room, and my mom immediately started to get up, but she couldn't. She felt as if an invisible force was binding her to the bed. The lady stopped and turned to look at my mother. Her hair swept from her face to reveal a face my mother can only describe as terrifying. She had no eyes. There were a black void that seemed to pierce through my mother's eyes. Her jaw seemed broken and hung open, and a reddish blackish ooze dripped from it. The lady let out a high-pitched screech, and I started to cry in my crib. The lady turned back around to my crib. She struggled as she listened to my screaming. Then I stopped. Everything was silent. Her thought ran through her mind. She couldn't think right. After a while, she could finally get up. She ran into my room to check on me. I was sound asleep like nothing had happened. She grabbed a bat and searched the apartment to find nothing. Everything was the same as it was. She grabbed our phone and called our neighbor. Hey, did you hear my baby cry? She was just crying a while ago.
What are you talking about? Your baby wasn't crying. Is everything okay?
I didn't know what to think. Was this lady a blessing or a curse? My mother always told me my grandmother dwelled in black magic, and it could be a byproduct of something gone wrong, but who knows, honestly. I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. This is the story on how a creepy encounter with the scary man at a harbor cafe saved me from something even more terrifying. It was the autumn of 1994 and I was 19 years old. At the time, my dad had been working for almost 6 months aboard, and I was planning a surprise visit. My dad and I have always been close. I am an only child, and my mother died of cancer when I was still a baby. So it's just my dad and I really. A tiny little family, but he made up for being the most awesome parent ever. Now that I wasn't a little kid anymore, I appreciate that more and more. I had booked the ticket and was ready to go. It was going to be great fun to surprise him with the visit. I had to take the ferry though, and I had just gotten my driver license and felt really unhappy about having to drive my little cart on board the ferry, and decided not to bring a car at all and just rent one once I got there. Having time to spend, I decided to have coffee at a nearby cafe since I was early and they haven't started letting people onto the ferry just yet. At this cafe, there were a lot of truck drivers, and I soon realized I was the only woman there. One man, a 40-ish bloke with ice blue eyes and tattoos all over, was eyeing me from across the room. Something about him made my skin crawl. I got up to leave, feeling suddenly very uncomfortable, and to my utter horror, he followed. What do I do now? I asked myself. This was before everyone owned a cell phone, I might add. I decided to try and look busy and maybe he would leave me alone. So I pulled out my ticket and tried to look like I was reading it carefully, when he suddenly snatched it from my hand and said, I'm on the same boat. I have an hour of your company. Oh, how lovely. In a voice that was absurd combination of joyful, flattering, and high and hidden hostile. In a voice that was an absurd combination of joyful, flattering, and hidden hostility. I felt it very strongly that if I got on that boat with this man who now knew my booking details, I'd be in grave danger. I can't explain why the feeling was so overwhelming, but it was, and I decided there and then to not get on that boat. The ticket had been cheap anyway. I could get on the next one instead. I hid in the ladies' room until I knew the ferry had left, and then I went to rebook my ticket. The story could have ended here, a creepy encounter with the stalkerish men, but it doesn't. The story could have ended here, a creepy encounter with the stalkerish man, but it doesn't. I was right in the assumption that getting on that ferry would have been unbelievably dangerous. Have you figured it out yet? The date was September 28, 1994. The name of the ship was Estonia, and that cold night she sank in the Baltic Sea, taking 852 people with her, resulting in the worst ferry catastrophe to strike Sweden to this day. I still recall that day with horror and wonder what would happen if this creepy man had not taken an interest in me, if I had not listened to my instinct and gotten on board instead of waiting for the next boat. would I have been among the survivors, or would my dad have seen my name on the list of lives lost in the Baltic Sea? Hi, I hope you enjoy the stories we picked out, and I enjoy reading it to y'all. I would really appreciate it if you like and subscribe and comment what other stories you would like to see. I hope you enjoy Link's gameplay of Helltaker. All the cuties that helped this video would be in the description below. I will link mine and Link's Instagram accounts for further updates on future videos. I hope you have a beautiful day and stay hydrated, friends. And I'm just going to let this video play for the rest of the remaining time. Enjoy, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye! You